In this video, we'll learn how to use the abrasive cutoff wheel, a very useful tool for quickly cutting steel. Before we talk about the tool, you should always check some safety on yourself. So from the head down, I'm going to make sure I've got eye protection on. I've got my hearing protection handy. Definitely need to be wearing that when you're using this tool. On my hands, I have no gloves, no rings, bracelet, jewelry of any kind, or watches. I've got no long sleeves, and if I was wearing them, I would roll them up. Continuing down, I've got pants on, no shorts, and I've got closed-toed shoes, no sandals. The last thing I check is any danglies, so if my hair can touch my shoulders, I want to make sure that that's pulled up, and if I have any jewelry or hoodie cords, I tuck those on the inside. Looking a little bit more closely at the tool here, one thing that you should notice is that it's not actually attached to the table. That allows us to move it back and forth for larger or smaller pieces. So you should always check that the feet are well back from the edge so it doesn't risk slipping off the table while you're using it. Also, when you're cranking on the vise, make sure that you don't put so much force that you might tip it over. Now this has been left correctly by the last person who used it, which means that they hooked the chain back on it. So to get set up, you just push down on the handle. That's going to give you some slack so that you can unhook the chain, just hang it out of the way. And since this is spring loaded, guide it all the way back until it's open. Now we can see that the cutting tool here is actually just an abrasive disc. So this abrasive medium is within a ceramic matrix, meaning that it could shatter and break kind of like glasses. That's why we always want to keep it closed when not in use. If this accidentally got cracked, the next person that turned on the tool could cause this to shatter and explode. Also, general rule in the shop is if you can clamp it, you should clamp it. Here we have a vise that's built right into the tool. There's a fixed face of the vise and the face that we can move by going lefty-loosey on the handle, or a clever little trick here, you can flip the threads up, which allows you to slide it much faster open and closed. You can change the angle of the vise here by using a wrench on this back face. The movable face will adjust automatically. However, you always want to make sure that whatever material you're trying to clamp is at least past that pivot point. So really short pieces of material can't be cut with this tool. We'll keep it at 90 degrees for now. To get my material set up, I'm going to slide it into the vise there. If I had a really precise cut, I could lower the blade down and line it up before I tighten in the rest of the way. Righty-tighty. Always important to make sure that your material is nice and secure by trying to move it, especially round material. It can pivot and get loose and dangerous real quick. Now that our material is secure in the vise, we can get set up to cut. You never want your body to be in line with the blade, so we're always going to stand on the left-hand side. That means that my right hand should be controlling the trigger and the handle. My left hand can go on the body of the motor for extra control. Bring it down close to your material, but make sure it's not touching before you pull the trigger. You need to have it get up to speed, and if it's touching the material, it can't do that. Once you pull in the trigger, it'll be at full speed. There's no variable speed control, and it is loud, so we'll have to have our ear protection in. With it spinning, I'm going to slowly increase the pressure and push into the steel. And I want to get a healthy shower of sparks behind it. There's two types of sparks in the shop, happy sparks and sad sparks. These are happy sparks, meaning that they can land on your clothing, skin, hair, and it's not going to burn you or set you on fire. Unlike welding sparks, which would be sad sparks, we wear protective clothing for that because those would burn. As I push into the material, you may hear the motor start to slow down or stutter. If that happens, just keep your finger on the trigger, but lift it up slightly so it can get back up to speed, and then push gently back into the material again. You may need to repeat that many times to get through a thicker piece of material. Once you're through the material and you feel that you can go all the way down, simply take your finger off the trigger, but keep the blade lowered until it stops spinning. At that point, you can lift it back up and deal with the next steps. So we're all set up to do the cut. I've double checked my safety, my eyes are covered, my hearing protection is ready to go, clothing is proper, no gloves, and everyone else in the shop space has their glasses on. If it's quiet in the shop with the tool this loud, it's useful to give a warning by shouting "tool on" before you pull the trigger. Here we go. Tool on. Now, we've just cut through steel using friction, so this piece of metal is going to be very hot. You never want to touch it with your fingers, which is why you'll usually find a pair of pliers near this station. You can use it to pick up your metal and dunk it into the water to cool it off. Just with that short water bath there, makes it cool enough that you can handle it right away. Your stock material, once you get it removed from the vise, is also going to be hot, but just on its far end. So because of this big heat sink, it stays cool all the way up until just the tip. That part should get cooled in the water as well before you return it to the supply shelf. Lastly, when you're done with the tool, make sure that you haven't left your stock material in there, and remember that you always want to lower down the blade and put the chain on it to protect it from getting cracked. If any of these steps get forgotten, you can always check out the wall where the summary is posted, or look into the shop tool folder if you're enrolled in the class.